You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that is honest, reveals the facts, truth, and statistics, and does not mess around. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Email me at TaylorGatorPhillips14@yahoo.com. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313, and go to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker, and join our group with the exact same name. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast is also available on iHeartRadio and SoundCloud. Also a subsidiary of Sports Radio Detroit, thus available on iTunes and Podbean. The views expressed by the host of this podcast are not opinion-based or for entertainment purposes. They are actually facts and truth, no matter if other people like it or not. It is the Michigan Sports Truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Hey there, Michigan sports fanatics, and welcome to episode 225 of the Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker. I'm Taylor Phillips with my co-host Ed Smith. Thanks so much for being on here with me, Ed. We've got a lot to cover after our 5-week hiatus from the show due to my computer and mobile issues, delays, and other things in the way, etc. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media. Have their friends share that as well, and follow me on Spreaker as Taylor Phillips online at www.Spreaker.com, because I want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth podcast here on Spreaker is in search of local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, please email me at TaylorGatorPhillips14@yahoo.com or privately message me on Facebook or Twitter. You can also follow Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter at Sports Radio Det, and like their Facebook page. Find their podcasts available on iTunes and Podbean. Ed, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Taylor. First and foremost, good morning to you. And secondly, it's great to be back. And what a great time for our return episode, so to speak. And right smack dab at the early part of the start of football season. I'm excited. Can't wait to get into it. Let's get started.
Oh, yeah. College football, Lions, and then Tigers. Then we'll have 10 questions. But first, the upset of the college football world.
Touchdown, Central Michigan!
We're going to go over the first 2 weeks of the college football season and not just talk about last week. CMU opened their season at Kelly Short Stadium against the Presbyterian Blue Hose. They routed them 49-3. Then they had to go to Oklahoma State, take on the 22nd ranked Cowboys on the road in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And the Cowboys jumped out to a 14-0 lead, and it looked like from there it was going to be a rout, but once the Chippewas got on the board with a touchdown, it was actually a close game. It turned out to be a much tenser drama as CMU kept coming back. And when CMU took the lead in the fourth quarter, it became a bit of a seesaw until their quarterback Cooper Rush threw 2 interceptions with the go-ahead touchdown by Oklahoma State in between with about 4 or 5 minutes to go. But when Oklahoma State had the ball and ran out the clock, they were called for intentional grounding on a deep pass out of bounds. That's Mason Rudolph, their quarterback, who did that. They were called for intentional grounding for some reason, and it seemed like the referees got that call wrong, and so did the replay officials. But that led to that allowed the Central Michigan Chippewas on fourth down for Oklahoma State to have one more chance. The Chippewas were on their own 49-yard line, and Cooper Rush faded back, and he passed deep to Jesse Kroll, who caught it at about the 10-yard line. He caught it at the 9, and he lateraled it to Corey Willis at the 11. And he scrambled from the near side and took it all the way, just barely, to score that game-winning touchdown.
Very wild end to a wild game, I would say. I think you and I can both agree on that. To really clarify what happened on that play, apparently, when Oklahoma State did commit the intentional grounding, even though it was supposed to be counted as a loss or down, it should not have happened. I guess due to the rules of it being inside the last 2 minutes, whatever, since it was a personal foul of that nature or something similar to that effect, that should have been seen as part of the automatic 10-second run off the clock, and that should not have counted as in terms of, that should have meant that Central Michigan gets the ball back due to the loss down to the unintentional grounding. No, the game should have ended right then and there. And so essentially, Central Michigan got an extra play. They basically got what Colorado got years ago with the fifth down. Central Michigan got something similar here, and give credit to them that took advantage of it. As for the play, it wasn't so much a Hail Mary as it was a hail and lateral, because remember, like you mentioned, when Cole caught the ball, he was still a yard short of the end zone. And in fact, while he was being tackled, being brought down to the ground, he was just able to get the ball off in time. And then even still, wasn't so much of a guarantee, because the player still had to run all across the field, essentially, just to outrun the defender that was chasing him. And even when he got to the goal line, just managed to get across. So that was basically a right down to the wire finish as you'll ever see this year or any other year. But credit to Central Michigan, big win for them. I don't know if it tops the 2009 win against Michigan State for selfish reasons on my end, but still very up there. Excellent start to their season. Remember they did lose to Oklahoma State last year, 2014, so this was their measure of revenge. So now they're 2-0 to start the season with 2 more non-conference games left before the conference schedule start. Want to get home against UNLV and then at Virginia. So, this help propel them to a possible MAC title run, as terms of giving them the motivation and the mental edge in terms of, hey, we could, as long as we stay committed, we can win any game that we're in, possibly, but, it's still yet to be seen. But even still, very, very big win for CMU.
Of course. They're my Chippewas, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say that another big win for another reason, because I'm sure it made you proud because it's your Chips. And, on the road, first and foremost, and then number 2 against an opponent I'm sure practically everybody was picking them to lose to, they pulled it off. Granted, some, when you look back on it, probably shouldn't have counted, but hey, the win is a win, and unless, some weird scandal breaks, they're not going to take it away from you. Even still, they can't take the memory from you either. So
No.
Enjoy the win. Don't apologize for it. And it's on to the next one next week.
Yep. And because of that, the Mid-American Conference has suspended their officiating crew for 2 games for the controversy. Also, the Big 12 Conference has suspended their replay officials. Both sides suspended 2 games for simply getting that whole thing wrong. And it's kind of odd that that any part of the officiating crew or the replay officials would receive any kind of punishment, because in any case, because there's almost never been a punishment for either a referee or an umpire or a replay a member of the replay crew. It's just justice being served.
Unusual. It's exactly. It's just being served for one reason only, because they literally decided a game which really shouldn't have been decided that way. It was because of them that, in a sense, Oklahoma State lost a game that they shouldn't have lost. If I'm Oklahoma State, I'd be very, very upset by what I saw out there. You have officials, I'm sure experienced officials that have done this for a number of years now, and if they can't know what the difference between what's a runoff penalty in a situation and what's not, then there has to be repercussions for this, because of your ineptitude, you cost us a game. You literally screwed us out of a game. So I fully agree with the ruling that was made by both the MAC and the Big 12.
Yeah, I'm afraid it all goes with the territory.
Like I said, don't be scared. Don't be downtrodden about it. It's your win. Nobody can take that from you, and just hope it doesn't come like that again. But hey, win's a win.
Yeah, and I could not even be any prouder than that. I feel a lot prouder of my Central Michigan Chippewas as a Chippewa, either way, especially as a CMU alum, for witnessing what went down in Stillwater. The game was televised on FS1, and let's just say it was televised at the right time, in the right place, on the right day. And you could view that video online at ESPN.com, also CMUChippewas.com, and I got it posted up on my social media sites, Facebook and Twitter. Add me and follow on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. Actually, Ed, you posted this on my timeline just so people can hear it, and I thank you for it a lot. Because everybody thought when Oklahoma State ran out the clock, the game was over. They didn't think a flag was being thrown at the end of that time-killing play. There actually was for intentional grounding, and that gave my Chippewas the free opportunity on the untimed down. They threw the hail and lateral for the game-winning score, kind of like the Packers getting that extra untimed down at Ford Field last year. Not to rip Lions fans apart again, but the Packers getting that game-winning touchdown from about midfield with no time left on the clock to win. At that point, the Lions were going to sweep the Packers for the first time since 1991. I guess that backfired, but we're going to get to Lions in about a couple of moments here. Chippewas are back home against the Nevada Las Vegas Rebels at 3 o'clock this forthcoming Sunday. They improved to 2-0 with their upset win. They look to carry the momentum the rest of the season. Now, let's get to other college football in the mitten stuff.
Touchdown, Michigan!
The Michigan Wolverines played their first two games at home against the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors and the Central Florida Knights. They routed the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors 63-3.
Oh, man!
And then they steamrolled the Central Florida Knights 51-14.
Oh, man!
So, in other words, they're dominating this non-conference competition, and everything seems to be going the Maize and Blues way.
Yeah, they're basically what they're supposed to do. They're dominating the cupcakes on their non-conference. It's like, it's like what we saw on Saturday night, what was supposed to happen, what was inevitable. Mickey Gall running through CM Punk. I love CM Punk, give credit for him to step into the octagon, but practically if you were a smart person, you knew what was likely going to happen. Same thing applies in this case to what Michigan did to their first two non-conference opponents. Not much you could say on the fact that the defense looks just as good as last year. A big key here is what, except for their linebacking core, practically everybody else is coming back. That includes Jeremy Clark, Jordan Lewis, and of course Jabril Peppers. Their defensive line just looks outstanding. Chris Wormley, Hurst, and even now the freshman Rashawn Gary. Their defense is definitely going to be a big reason why they'll be in a lot of talk of possible playoff contender. And in fact, right now, they're due to what we've seen in recent weeks with top five teams losing. Due to that, Michigan is now number 4 in the AP poll. So if the season ended today, essentially, if you want to call it like that, you're sort of I'm going to go 538 on you. If the season ended today, Michigan would be in the playoff. But obviously, you still have a full year left to go here. 2 little games ain't going to cut it. I will say, though, I'm very impressed with what I saw from what I've seen so far from Wilton Spate, which is, kind of weird because his very first play, very first pass ever, it opened with him throwing an interception. Not exactly the type of omen that you want to see. Quite the opposite from Denard Robinson fumbling the football on his first snap and then running the scramble for a touchdown. But still, I do like what the young man did. The junior from Richmond, standing at an impressive 6'6". He was able to shake it off. Not let that affect him, and he went on to have a very passable. The punt game against Hawaii, still 10 of 13, still had 3 touchdowns, still had a completion percentage, just about 77% over 145 yards, with a QBR of 98, just under 100. And then he followed that up what he did against UCF. Again, another impressive display. No mistakes, no turnovers. In fact, he had 4 touchdowns. Even though he had there was a couple of spots early on, we might have overthrown his receiver a little bit. Connor Mink gave you flashbacks to what Jake Rudock was going through early last year. He was able to turn that around quickly. Spade, in this case, had tremendous poise in the pocket, was able to find his receivers, wasn't exactly staring down too many guys. He was finding, whether it be J.U. Cheston, Amar Darbo, and Jake Wood is his safety valve and tight end. Another reason why Michigan is getting a lot of picks from people to be in the playoff, because they return so many people, not just defense, but especially on offense as well. Practically, with the exception of Jake Rudock leaving for the draft. We'll get to him a little bit later, and of course, a couple of guys in the offensive line. The offense is practically the same. You still have your running backs, still have your wide receivers, still have your tight end. the pieces are there, and of course you have the coaching staff with Jim Harbaugh at the helm. You still have Greg Madison, by the way, who, even though he was the defensive coordinator under Brady Hoke, he decided to move to the defensive line position to coach. That has worked out tremendously as well for this defense and for the team as a whole. If there were things that you would want to critique Michigan on that you wish they'd improve on, I would say, especially what I saw last week against UCF, they need better, just need a better start with the run game, primarily of how can their offensive line dictate at the line of scrimmage to help set up the running backs. Because I think they got a good levy and depth of backs. Ty Isaac, Devion Smith, Drake Johnson. They just need better holes from their offensive line because they're not what you call home run plays, home run backs, your Adrian Petersons, that what you saw, back in Oklahoma, the Adrian Petersons and whatnot. They'll give you good yards. Eventually, they'll bust out a big one, but most likely it'll be against teams that are considered little sisters of the sport. So, like in big games against your conference opponents or national spotlight games against tough teams, that's where, some cases you need your offensive line to help you out, help open up, or just provide a good enough crease and good enough seals at that first level so that your running backs can get through and give you good plays and good chunks. So if there's anything I can critique on both sides of the ball for Michigan, because even their special teams was very impressive against UCF. Well, for the most part, they blocked a field goal or two field goals, and either blocked or greatly effective two punts. That was all in the first half. Now, granted, they did have a little mess up, the botch bobble on the snap from Kenny Allen on one punt, which led to a bad spot and a turnover and a good field position for UCF. Fortunately and unfortunately, it didn't go back for a touchdown this time, but unfortunately, it did conjure up bad memories of what happened last year against MSU. That's something you would hope they would work on and try to correct. Obviously, still got some work to do on that end, but hey, don't worry about it. It's a random game. It's a meaningless game in September. Just don't do that crap again in October or November. So really, my only critique for Michigan is just improve your running game because the defense is there. Your quarterback has shown so far that he can be a game manager. Just not make too many mistakes. Find his guys. Try not to force anything. He's got a good arm, from what I could see. He's able to deliver nice passes down the field. Probably a little bit better in some senses than what Rudolph was doing early last year. And he still just managed the game. It would really help him out more if he got a more consistent and engaging and producing running attack from his running backs and from his offensive line. So that's really the only thing that keeps me from saying, "Oh, Michigan, they're playoff bound," and the fact that like I said, they've yet to even get into the most challenging part of their schedule. In fact, looking at what the games they got coming up here, Colorado, Penn State, who just lost to Pitt, by the way, Wisconsin, Rutgers, and Illinois, they should, in my opinion, should be 7-0 when they face Michigan State in East Lansing. I guess if you want to say, what's their, would be the remaining tough test before MSU, maybe Wisconsin, since the fact that they're that win against LSU motivated them. Big win, big performance on their end. And maybe Penn State, maybe they want to lick their wounds a little bit, try to come out and prove something after that loss to Pitt. But the thing is, both those games are at home. And even though, the first road game, you have a road game before MSU, it's against Rutgers, and Rutgers stinks. So no worries about that. So in all honesty, once you get past Penn State and Wisconsin, in my view, you should be 7-0 going into East Lansing next month.
And speaking of upcoming games, their next game is at home, but against the Colorado Buffaloes this upcoming Saturday at 3:30 on BTN. We all remember what happened between the last time the Michigan Wolverines and Colorado Buffaloes faced each other at the Big House. That Hail Mary, that was in the 90s, wasn't it, Ed?
Yeah, that was 94. Cordell Stewart to Brian Westbrook over Ty Law. I think, they did play a couple of times. I think Michigan beat them, I want to say either 97 or 98. I'll look it up real quick because I do know they got different fans a little bit. Because they did play a couple of times throughout the 90s. One brief second, my deepest apologies for that. But yeah, like between 97 and 98, they got they were able to get one back on Colorado. So obviously, though, however, whenever you mention Colorado, Michigan, that's of course the one thing that most people will immediately point to. Oh yeah, Cordell Stewart, Hail Mary. So
yeah, that gave Colorado the win, didn't it?
Yeah, right at the end of the game.
Don't you think I know that?
Well, we already know that, of course, but yeah.
I just found it. Yeah, this will be the first time since they played since '97. I knew I was right on one of those years. So that was '97, of course. Year Michigan went on to win the national title. The overall record, by the way, is 3-1 in terms of the whole series. Michigan with 3 wins, of course, the lone loss being the Hail Mary from '94.
Yeah, that's still a good record. Granted, just
small sample size, but nice way to perform against an opponent.
Yep, it was almost like a bowl game, but it was a regular season game. All 4 regular season games. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Yeah. Have you a scouting report on the Buffaloes?
To be quite honest, not really. I do know so far they are 2-0. They've yet to enter. Again, it was against teams like Colorado State and Idaho State, so you can't really measure that so much. So knowing that they are in the Pac-12 and they are in the same division with the likes of Oregon and Stanford and Cal, even Washington, who's had a very, very surprising good start. They're now ranked up to number 8 in the AP. I will tell you, though, that Colorado did finish last year with a 4-9 record, including 1-8 in conference play. The Pac-12 finished dead last in the South Division. So, this isn't a team that I'm going to lose sleep over, leading up to, especially after the game.
All right. Well, that does it for Michigan Wolverines material. We're going to move on to the Michigan State Spartans.
Touchdown, MSU!
They scored just 4 touchdowns against Furman, and they still beat them 28-13 in week 1, and then they had their bye week. They're at Notre Dame this upcoming Saturday at 7:30 in South Bend at Notre Dame on NBC. Before we get to some roster news, let's analyze this 28-13 win. There are some people that and players that kind of underestimated Furman, but Furman's defense gave their offense a chance to keep their team in the game, but MSU sealed it. Have any thoughts?
Yeah, I could say, Furman, it's not like they were a one-hit wonder this week, because remember, even the very next week, even though they lost as well, they took their opponent, the Citadel, right to the wire, just another close loss, this one being 19-14. So, it's not so much an indictment on Michigan State. It should be a note on how, pretty darn good Furman is. And, we're seeing a lot of these apparent FCS teams that, in these first 2 weeks where it seemed like, oh yeah, most of these going to be guaranteed easy W's, whereas most of them actually come down to the wire, if not have been outright upsets. You know, we also what Appalachian State almost did to Tennessee. Saw what Nichols almost did to Georgia. What was it? Western Michigan, even though they're not FCS, but still, Western Michigan beat Northwestern. Kent State was having a little bit of trouble with Kent State of all teams before they got together. So, you know, these cupcakes are not exactly easy to bake anymore, if you know what I'm saying. So, give credit to Furman for their job, for performance. I can also say, though, that another big reason why, if you look at some of these team stats in comparison, MSU just barely, in terms of time of possession, they held the ball only 58 more seconds total time than what Furman did. They also had 2 turnovers compared to Furman's 1, only had 1 more first down, and a big ugly day here. 10 penalties for 120 yards compared to 4 for 34 for Furman. So, you know, they were able to get the running game at least going, had that working for them. Their defense was fine. Tyler O'Connor had a bit of a shaky start, much like Wilton Spade. But just like Spade, he was able to shake it off and have a decent game. 13 of 18, was it 4 touchdowns, I believe, and that lone interception. So, very nice first game for Tyler O'Connor, taking over for Connor Cook. So many Connors, my goodness, from last year. So it would be, and of course now with the bye week essentially from here, it does give you good time to learn from your mistakes before going into a real juggernaut this Saturday night against Notre Dame. Mind you, I would say a very pissed off Notre Dame team, because even though it was a couple weeks ago, I'm pretty sure that loss against Texas is still stinging them. Because I'm pretty sure a lot of Notre Dame fans were thinking, it's going to be, you know, we can make another deep run just like we did in 2012, but I guess their playoff hopes almost essentially died right then and there with that first week loss to Texas. So, indeed, they were able to respond, but trust me, they're going to be looking to take out their anger almost essentially on Michigan State. But we'll preview that a little bit later down the week when we get to it. But it'll be a very interesting game to pay attention to.
I'm looking forward to it as well. So that's going to do it for college football.
Well, before we do,
that's right.
Roster note.
Yeah, linebacker Ed Davis was for Michigan State granted a 6-year eligibility. He tore his ACL before last year, according to ESPN, as you found out, Ed, before we started this episode.
Yeah, Davis, linebacker for MSU, he has a very high level of importance to the team, so much so that D'Antonio, last year even, before the injury, he said Davis might be as good a linebacker as we ever had. The year before, 2014, he had 58 tackles, with those being 7 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. Unfortunately, during preseason camp, tore his ACL. He still had to finish up coursework requirements in order for him to get his degree this past August. And that was before his future was still up in the air, so whether or not he would be granted that 6th year and be cleared to play. And while he was waiting for the news, he was practicing for the team. This is all detailed in an ESPN.com article from Brian Bennett on the MSU page. You can check it out right there. So essentially, when he got that, when we all got the news, Mark D'Antonio tweeted it out on Friday, saying Ed Davis gets his 6th year. Hashtag back-to-back. Hashtag V for MSU, which of course we all know that means. Victory for MSU is by talk. And so, essentially, if and when Davis comes back this year, he will play this year, and then he'll be eligible to play next year as well. And when he does come back, he will be wearing the number 12, because he wore number 43 before, and I guess due to roster move or whatever, he will now be wearing number 12. If and when he comes back this year, and more than likely he'll be wearing the same number next year as well.
Glad for the Spartans. The Spartans are glad to have Ed Davis around for quite a significant amount of time.
Yeah, that could be a potential. You can almost count it as like a post National Signing Day commitment of sorts, or a post deadline acquisition, that type of thing. Because when you get a player back who's been injured for that long, it kind of feels that way. So it could help out Michigan State in terms of what they need for their defense late in the year. Because granted, I think he'll be a little bit rusty, but if he plays, let's say for instance, if he plays a couple games before Michigan, gives him a chance to shake off that rust. That way he'll be, fully, well, not fully, because you don't know what he was like before the injury, but still back too close to what he was before the injury when they do play Michigan this year. So I think for MSU, if they can have him back for Michigan, it'll be perfect. If not, won't be a total loss. You still got that full eligibility for next year. Determining when he comes back could help them out with their defense and how their whole season outlook in terms of what they're probably expected to finish at.
Sometimes, just like the old folks saying, when opportunity knocks on that door, you walk right through it, and that's what Ed Davis did on National Signing Day. So, with that being covered and out of the way, we're now going to transition to the Detroit Lions.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Before week 1 of the 2016 NFL season, we witnessed how Jake Rudock outplayed Matthew Stafford and Dan Orlovsky in the quarterback position in all 4 preseason games, and Rudock really lit it up, and then after the preseason, the Lions cut Jake Rudock.
Are you kidding me with this?
And then they put him on the practice squad. That's Jim Caldwell's decision.
I don't care what anybody says.
And they decided not to release Orlovsky.
Are you kidding me with this?
I am still at a loss for words for that on that roster move. Jake Rudock was already proved that he was ready to go.
The way he evolved throughout his 1 year at Michigan was very impressive. It made a lot of people think, hey, you know what, this kid's probably got a possible future in the NFL. And then, fans of his and fans of Michigan fans, obviously, felt even more excitement when, hey, he got drafted by the Lions of all teams. So you think maybe, this could lead out to something good for him, especially when you saw what he did in the preseason. Granted, it's preseason for a reason, but still, you want to get an evaluation from what you can see out of your players, and clearly he was way better than Dan Orlovsky. I don't know what I guess you could say, oh, he's a veteran, or oh, he's used to our playbook. It doesn't matter, and quite frankly, I don't care. You use the best 53 guys you can use. Dan Orlovsky is not one of the best 53 guys you can use on
because
any
of the
team,
interceptions that Orlovsky threw game after game. That drove me crazy.
Exactly. If anything,
it wasn't surprising either.
The one that should have been cut. No, exactly, because one, he's possibly good friends with Caldwell due to the whole, and I'm not using this as an example or platform to talk on religion or anything of that nature. So don't take it like that. But that could have played a factor. Not to mention the fact that he's probably good friends with Caldwell as well. So Caldwell, it seems he can use the excuse of saying, "Oh, he's been the veteran. He knows our playbook more," but that cannot justify what you saw with your own eyes if you were listening or if you had a brain or you were alive to see what was going on here between what Rudock did and what Orlovsky did, or rather didn't do. I mean, and to say, "Oh, don't worry, we'll put him on the practice squad." So what? So in case, let's say something happens, God forbid, to Stafford, and you're left Dan Orlovsky as your quarterback, or you're going to be forced to bring back Rudolph. It would have been better if you just kept Rudolph, cut Orlovsky, and then signed some dude off the street. Because a dude off the street would be a better quarterback than Dan Orlovsky. I would take Tim Tebow as a quarterback over Dan Orlovsky. I'll take CM Punk as a quarterback over Dan Orlovsky. That's how bad it is.
Oh, yeah. Dan Orlovsky still should not have come back to Detroit. He could have just, retired because he's not that good.
Yeah, he could have been out in Novi at Tim Hortons, whatever, signing, doing autograph sessions, signing copies of him running out of the back of the end zone, with getting his autograph on it. Live it up. Basically do in a way similar to Jim Marshall, even though Jim Marshall was a far, 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 far better player than Orlovsky ever could dream of being. Marshall, of course, is only remembered because he ran the wrong way on a fumble recovery, and instead of scoring a touchdown, he scored a safety. But still, that shouldn't take away from what he accomplished as a player. But, unfortunately, you can't say the same for Orlovsky. But it's something I wouldn't mind having on my mantle, just saying it's something to poke fun at. Yeah, you ran out back of the end zone. I had a brain fart. It's something that you live with, and you just poke fun of it, in my view. But, hey, you take advantage of it to get some cash on the side. Who wouldn't? But, the Lions are keeping him employed. They're keeping him on the squad. It's something that you, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people, not just Michigan fans, it's something that I'm sure a lot of people disagree with. And, what else can you do with it? It's not our call. It's not our decision. The Lions are in charge of, more specifically, Jim Caldwell. He is the head coach here. So, it's unfortunate, but what else can you do? What else can you expect, rather, from this team or from this coach that you haven't seen before in the years or decades before previously?
Yeah. So, moving on to week one, that being said, the Lions jumped out to a 21-0 lead. 14-3 lead, actually. They made it 21-3. Yeah. 21-3 lead. It was 21-10 at halftime. The Lions were off to a hot start in the first half. Their defense kept bringing pressure on quarterback Andrew Luck, but the secondary didn't do much in all this game, as they let the opposing wide receivers catch the ball on deep passes that moved the Colts, kept moving the Colts down the field, and then of course the game ended up being close. The Lions retook the lead on that touchdown by Theo Riddick. Theo Riddick ended up with 3 touchdowns, I believe.
No, I think he had two touchdowns. I think one was rushing, or both of them might have been receiving. No, one was receiving, one was rushing. But in terms of what he did, between him and Amir Abdullah, by the way, they both had a combined total of about close to 30 touches, over 200 yards of total offense, 200 yards of total offense, and 3 total touchdowns. So between those two guys, they may have found. Because listen, before we can get to what happened in the second half, we got to break down what Detroit did do. Because remember, I posted a video on Facebook. It's also on our Facebook page for the show, listing and breaking down 3 important keys that the Lions needed to do to accomplish in order to get the win. One of those was find a way to adjust without Calvin Johnson, of course. Obviously, you can't replace that type of force with one player. It's got to be a playmaker by committee, essentially. Got Golden Tate, got Marvin Jones, got Anquan Bolden. You also have, like I mentioned before, with Abdullah and Riddick. and Stafford was able to utilize that. Stafford had a tremendous day on his own. 31 of 39, 240 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. I think he completed the ball to 8 or 9 different receivers. Let's see, Wick, Roberts, Bolden, Tate, Ebron, Dula, Jones, Riddick. Yeah, that was 8 dudes that was able to spread the wealth and share the ball to. So it was like he was constantly staring dudes down. He was looking at check downs, looking at different paths, even on a couple plays, using his feet, using his athleticism to get out what could have been either sure losses or sacks, or even in one case a strip fumble. It was able to get out of harm's way and either use instincts, awareness, or combo of both to make a good enough play to get a first down for the team, which kept the drive moving and then picks on a couple instances. So nothing else you could say about Stafford. We'll get to what he did late in the game a little bit later in a little bit, but I really like what I saw. In terms of other keys to the game, I said that Detroit needed to take advantage of this because this was a Colts team that was suffering through a bevy of injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They were essentially they already lost. They were already without 4 dudes coming in with Vontae Davis, Pat Robinson, Darius Butler, and Clayton Githers, as well as their defensive tackle Henry Anderson. So they came into the game down, with 8 guys on their secondary, 8 deep. And throughout the game, more guys were being seen to be dropping off with injuries like flies. So at the end of the game, Indiana had 5 dudes to work with their secondary, and it clearly showed because you don't have that rotation to sub guys in, what's going to tire you out. That was one reason why Detroit's defensive line did so well in the first half, because you had that plethora of guys, 8 or 9 guys to use on the defensive line as opposed to what they use in the secondary. So you can do that constant rotation, switch up matchups, switch up guys and spots or whatever, and it worked out to great effect. Haloti Ngata had a couple of batted balls. Didn't hear Ziggy Ansah's name too much, but he showed great hustle and effort getting after Luck. And Kerry Hyder Jr., my goodness, he's showing you. I guess a couple weeks ago, it was a guy fighting for a roster spot. Now here he was, after having a 3-sack performance in one game, comes out here, has 2 sacks against Andrew Luck. So that'll be one guy to possibly keep an eye on. It was very nice to see. It's very easy to tell that the defensive line will be a big strength, a big plus for the Lions defense. Probably their only plus because their secondary is still bad. Slay was getting lit up. Now the thing is though, whenever Luck did get protection from his offensive line, he was able to set his time, set his feet, and just light this team up. Even, of course, with the threat of him being able to use his legs, get out, contain or whatever, and extend the play, which we saw that happen a couple of times, to a positive effect, even especially on Indianapolis' last drive with the pass near the sideline. That, looked like it could have been, a possible flags penalty situation with receiver stepping out of bounds and then coming back in to catch the ball. Didn't though. The replay was too inclusive anyway. But yeah, it was the one reason why Luck was able to get good protection in the pocket in the second half. I think it was due to some halftime adjustments, which I think if you know now over 2 or 3 years in here, it's something that Jim Caldwell, I guess, doesn't know what is a halftime adjustment or probably doesn't believe in, because after seeing Luck basically under terror in that first half, he was virtually touch free in the second half. Now, granted, I will say though, both offensive lines did a good job of protecting their quarterbacks. That was another key that was the third key that I had mentioned. Is that the offensive line for Detroit, they needed to protect Matthew Stafford, and they did so. Stafford only got sacked once. He only got hit in terms of total QB hits 5 times compared to 6 for Luck, and 2 sacks for the defense, for Detroit's defense. So Or 6 times rather compared to Lux 5. Either or, both lines did a good job in that second half of protecting their QBs, which led to the stats that you saw. I mentioned Stafford's numbers. Here was Lux. He had 31 completions as well, had 48 more yards for 385 total, had 1 more touchdown pass, had no picks. But Stafford with the slightly better QBR and the rating of 128.6. And that was due to what we saw very late in the game, literally on, essentially on the last drive of the game. Taylor, you want to get to that?
Yeah, the last drive of the game. For the Colts or for the Lions here?
Did kind of say for the Colts because, I understand.
After that missed extra point by Matt Prater.
Yeah, I mean,
which he's done before.
Before that, though, Theo Riddick came in literally in the nick of time because Amir Abdullah was having a great game. He got dinged up a little bit. And remember, Riddick, who had suffered an apparent head injury earlier in the game, came back to the sideline just in time, subbed in for Abdullah, and had a masterful drive part in producing that touchdown on that drive. That he scored the touchdown himself, and it was kind of a little bit heartbreaking to see his reaction, see him go through all that work and just look up and see his kicker miss the damn extra point. But, well, Theo, that's your, you can't be lionized until you have a moment like that. So you are now officially part of the Detroit Lions Brethren. Welcome to the club. Now, as for Indy's last drive, Jeff Moss made a point here as to why in God's name did Jim Caldwell save all those timeouts. I know you want to go to Caldwell will play devil's advocate and say, hey, we need those timeouts, what we can do on our end. But here's the thing. You could save yourself more time if you just use the timeouts. Because let's face it, your defense was getting torqued. It would have been better to just let them score the touchdown anyway and use the timeout so you can have a better time. Essentially have the same time as what you had, but you got to know the importance of getting out of bounds, which is why Stafford was so incensed, essentially pissed off at Jones Jr., I think it was Marvin Jones, as well as Eric Ebron for not getting out of bounds late in the game because, while they're trying to fight for extra yards or whatever, you got to realize, dude, clock's running down here. This isn't like you don't have like a minute to go. You got like 30 seconds left. So thank goodness you had those 3 timeouts in a sense because you really more than likely would have lost this game. In fact, this is a game that the Lions should have lost. This was in the words of Michael Cole, a vintage Lions performance. You had an 18-point lead. You give up, you let them score 15 unanswered. Then you score a touchdown, make it 10. Then you get that lead back up, score another touchdown. Then, of course, you miss the extra point. Have the other team march down the field on you, score a essential last-second touchdown, and you might have hurt yourself by not giving yourself more time by not using your timeouts. And then, even right down to the wire, you have guys trying to fight for extra yards instead of getting the hell out of bounds. Stafford was incensed. He was chewing out Ebron and Jones. And, a lot of people was recognizing it, and I think a lot of them praised Stafford because, this is something we've been waiting for him to see him do now for his whole career. This is like literally 7 years in the making, but we finally saw it. Maybe it was the fact that he knew that now with no Sue, now with no Calvin, everybody is going to be squaring their full attention, their eyes right on number 9. So I think he recognized that and took it as upon himself to say, you know what, this is my chance now for me to become the unquestioned and undisputed leader of this team, for my turn now, my chance to take charge and take control. Ryan Schuling, who you and I both know, he commented, made a couple points on this, saying that he loved seeing what Stafford did, and I responded to him in a tweet, said, it literally took 7 years, but we saw it. Hope it's not a streak of lightning. And I mean that because as great as it was to finally see that happening, You don't want that to be a flash in the pan. You don't want that to be an anomaly. You want to see if Stafford can continue to do that, not just for this year, but in years to come, especially when now he's going to be seen as the guy, because he's got to get the ball to all these. Remember, he passed the ball to 8 different dudes in yesterday's game. Far different than what it would have been had he had Calvin Johnson. So for him to do that, take command, it's not. Well, not he didn't take command; he became command. To quote one of my favorite shows, Scandal, and he led his team on a final drive, set him up for a game-winning field goal. There's nothing more else you could ask for your starting quarterback, your franchise quarterback, to do for you than what Stafford did. Now, I can't get too happy with my appraisal of Stafford or as a team in general as a whole, because let's be honest, this Colts team, at least their defense, they don't look that good. They're probably not going to be that good this year. And also, they had 8,000 guys on their defensive side of the ball that was dealing with injuries. So, it was kind of a fortunate break for the Lions to play this team on this week. But it'd be interesting to see how Stafford can perform and rather how this offense can perform in the weeks to come.
The Lions ending up getting a safety at the end of the game on the kickoff because of the forward pass in the end zone. They win 39-35 on week 1 in Indianapolis. Moving right along here, we gotta move this along here because I gotta get to work. Get ready for work soon. We'll still talk Tigers and do 10 questions here. We are still on the air, by the way. However, the Spreaker Studio app is freezing up, but we are still on the air. Just our soundboard is unoperational right now. The sound bites, but we are still on the air. So if there are any technical difficulties, we apologize. Quick preview: Lions home opener against the Tennessee Titans Sunday at 1 on CBS.
Well, you still got to deal with the fact that Marcus Mariota is coming off a very good rookie year, high draft pick out of Oregon from a year ago. This is a team that really, in all honesty, they probably should have beat Minnesota yesterday, but unfortunately they made too many mistakes, made too many turnovers. That's really the only thing that you can hope on. And now, granted, the Lions, they didn't really, I think they had 0 takeaways total from the game against Indy. So if that's going to be one thing that will help you against a young team like Tennessee, it would be two forced turnovers. Another thing is we got to see better pressure from the defensive line, especially when you're against a young quarterback. Now, granted, Mariota, he's got legs, he's got movement, he's got athleticism and speed. He's still a young quarterback, so if you bring enough of a pressure against him and disguise those blitzes very well, he could be able to force some throws that could either be picked off or, just essentially disrupt their whole rhythm and momentum of their drive, like we saw in the first half against Indy. As for Stafford, I want to see more of what he did. I want to see him take charge more. I want to see him be that leader for the team. I want to see him be smart, get the ball out to as many guys as possible. I wouldn't mind him seeing him get the ball to Anquan Bolden a couple more times, because whenever he got the ball, it seemed to be a good beneficiary to Detroit. He only had 3 catches for 35 yards yesterday. I know, you want to share the wealth a little bit, but so when you have a big body like Anquan Bolden who can break tackles to get you needed yards on third down situations, he essentially becomes a safety valve for you, as opposed, compared to a second safety valve, I guess, when the first one to be Eric Ebron or Golden Tate or whatever. But, you have Anquan Bolden for a reason. Use him.
Definitely, you got to put him in play thus far. The Lions, granted, they put 39 points on the board in Indianapolis, but I think that if they want to keep their offense laying up, I think putting Anquan Bolden in the game more is a logical idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's, it is a good thing, though, that they are at home, because this will probably be their easiest game for the next 2 or arguably the next 3 weeks, because after that they got 2 back-to-back games on the road, and both are against divisional opponents against Green Bay and Chicago.
That's right, and they're both on the road, too.
Yep.
So with that, we're going to transition to Tigers. Well, I think we have to cover a lot since we're on this
5 weeks.
Yeah, 5-week hiatus. They get swept by the Royals. They split the 4-game series against the Red Sox at home, both series at home. Then they go to Target Field and sweep the Minnesota Twins. Then they come back home, lose 2 or 3 to the Angels, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They sweep the White Sox at home. They go to Kauffman Stadium and take 2 out of 3 from the Kansas City Royals. And then they go to U.S. Cellular Field and lose 2 of 3 to the White Sox and lose 2 of 3 to the Baltimore Orioles at home. That was a big series. Tigers took the first one 4-3.
Crucial.
And then they lose both their games by the score of 3-1, because apparently their offense stinks right now.
And also, not to mention the fact that Brad Ausmus is not putting, in my view, the necessary guys in at necessary moments. Where the hell is Stephen Moya? What was the purpose of bringing him up if you're not going to use him?
Because he was one of those Tigers that was called up along with Matt Boyd, Buck Farmer, and Jacoby Jones.
Right. I'd rather have him at the plate with a chance to win the game than the likes of Tyler Collins or Andrew Romine, because Moya has more pop in his bat. We've seen it a few times this year than what Collins or Romine, for instance, could possess. So why he's not getting pinch hit opportunity, I don't know. It was also a lot of another thing. Though this was a very, very, very big series. It felt like a playoff series because they are chasing Baltimore. They're locked into a death match with them essentially for that second wild card spot. And after taking the first game, and I believe taking control of that second spot, they then lose the next 2, and so now they're back 2 games out of the second wild card spot. It's more than likely even though you still got games coming up against Cleveland, the way the Indians are playing this year, I don't think the Tigers are catching them for the Central Division crown. It's going to come down to the fact, come down to them make or break what they can do in getting to the wild card. And with seeing this was their last series head-to-head against Baltimore, now they essentially have to do some scoreboard watching the rest of the way. Even though you got 7 games left against Cleveland, I just don't see you sweeping or taking 6 out of 7 in those games against the Cleveland Indians the way they've been playing and the way we've been playing. So it's more likely it's going to be wild card or bust this year for the Tigers in terms of them getting to the playoffs.
Also in that Baltimore series, the Tigers activated Jordan Zimmerman from the 15-day disabled list. Of course, Mike Pelfrey as well. Yeah. He got added to the bullpen, but Zimmerman gave up 6 runs in his second return from the DL, just like against the Orioles. Again, just like he gave up against the White Sox on August 4th, and now he has a 9.84 ERA and 7 starts since June 8th. They decided to remove him from the rotation, at least from the starting pitching rotation, at least for now, and make him throw a simulated game. According to manager Brad Ausmus, Jordan Zimmerman told him that he was fine physically, he wasn't hurt. His command was off. So they put him in they made him throw a simulated game, which will be later this week.
Even though you could have had him do the simulated game, you could have reversed this, so that even though if he might not have had all his stuff, he would have been pitching against a far inferior team in the Minnesota Twins than against a team like Baltimore that's fighting for the playoff lives. Oh my God!
Oh man, I know. Because the Twins
are the second time.
The second time.
That's the second. Even though it's taken a span of a month between starts, it's the second consecutive start that Zimmerman hasn't even lasted 2 innings.
Oh man!
Like he didn't even come out right. Oh my goodness!
He did not get an out in that second inning against the O's.
Oh, he's now lost 5 of his last 7 starts. Granted, one of those was a 2-1 loss, but still, let's look at
3-1 loss
the
actually.
runs that he gave up. The Kansas City on June 19th. I'm looking at it says a 2-1, but let's look at this.
Okay.
You know, against Toronto, 7 runs. Cleveland, 7 runs. Chicago, 6 runs. Baltimore, 6 runs. He's given up at least an excess of 4 to 6, even 7 runs. The majority of these past of his starts since June. Even the ones that he won, he gave up 4 runs in both of those outings. So, you know, it seems to be, you know, you need a slugfest to win whenever Zimmerman is starting these days, which is very unfortunate because he had a great start to April and May, and even had a good start in early part of June. But since that start on June 8th, where he gave up 7 against Toronto, it has been all downhill for Zim after that. But you know, it's you got to make the best of the situation that's presented to you, and if it means taking him off the starting rotation completely, and maybe try experimenting, bring him out of the bullpen if and when you do, and that's a big if, you make the playoffs. If you still want him on there and you want to just, let's say, bring him out of the bullpen, you know, you might have to try that, because unless I see a drastic improvement, I don't think you should be starting another game as a pitcher of starting rotation for the rest of this year.
Yeah, there's got to be a way for Jordan Zimmerman to improve. Otherwise, his career may be done.
Maybe, because he is 30 years old now, and even though he's pitched for 7 years, like when
it is 3-1, by the way. The final score was 3-1, by the way, on Sunday. The Orioles took
that wasted a good start from Verlander.
The Saturday game was 11-3.
I was talking about the 3-1 game. That wasted a good start from Verlander.
Yep. Yeah, I was way off on the Saturday game. So, my only talking point about the Tigers in this episode, the reason the Tigers keep Brad Ausmus if they don't make the playoffs is because Al Avila, the general manager, has no guts, even if he had the brains. Because there's still people complaining that the Tigers may keep Ausmus even if they don't make the playoffs, and they don't know why. They can't explain or even tell why. And I kept disagreeing with them in result because they can't back it up.
It could also be a case where that, you know, if you were to fire Ausmus, you know, at the end of the year, who does he bring for next year? Because most likely it's going to be someone that Mike Ilitch wants, not who he wants. You know, until he dies, Ilitch, still, you know, Mr. I still has a weird sense of an aura of control, a sense of who he wants to run his team, and from the manager spot at the very least. You know, it kind of reminds me of Vince McMahon in WWE. At the end of the day, Vince still calls the shots. End of the day here, Mr. I still calls the shots. So as long as he's still here, he's usually going to get what he wants. If he wants an old school manager like a Rod Gardenhire, you know, it's
not going to work.
Something. It'll be, yeah. Obviously, it won't work, but that's like the nightmare scenario that you're facing if, you know, should Ausmus be let go here. So that's the only saving grace that's more than likely probably why Ausmus still has a job at the moment. And if he does come back next year, that'll probably be the reason why as well, because the alternative that we could pick is not who we would want, whether it be a Manny Actor or someone else or someone decent and good and knows basic math and knows how to probably use metrics and advanced stats and whatnot, and rather just go into the likes of, you know, the Rod Gardenheimers and the Jim Lelands of the world. It's a pick your poison. It's pick your poison either way you slice it.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to the Red Wings here. Their preseason starts Tuesday, September 27th at home against the Pittsburgh Penguins at 7:30 at Joe Louis Arena. Their final season at Joe Louis Arena, of course, before they move to the new arena, Little Caesars Arena. Their preseason ends at home against the Maple Leafs, the Toronto Maple Leafs, at 7 on Saturday, October 8th. Then they drop the puck on their regular season, 2016-2017 regular season, in Tampa Bay against the Lightning on Tuesday, October 13th at 7:30. Then they're in Sunrise, Florida against the Panthers Saturday, October 15th. Their home opener is Monday, October 17th at 7:30 against the Ottawa Senators. Their first nationally televised game at Madison Square Garden, Wednesday, October 19th against the New York Rangers at 8 o'clock on NBCSN's Wednesday Night Rivalry with possibly Mike Emmerich and Eddie Olczyk and Pierre McGuire.
That reminds me, you know, since it is the last year of the show, thank goodness I came back home at the time that I did. So maybe I can get a chance to say, hey, I went to a Red Wing game at the Joe.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I only went to 2 games at the Joe. One of them won, one of them lost. The first one a long time ago. The Red Wings beat the Flyers 3-2. Slava Kozlov scored both goals in regulation. Chris Osgood and Wendell Clark won it in overtime. March 28th on a Sunday in the regular season. But with that being said, it's time for 10 questions. Are you ready, Ed?
Yes, I am, Taylor, so just let him rip.
Question number 1: Did the referees and replay officials deserve their two-week suspensions from the CMU Oklahoma State finish?
Yes, they did. What they did, you know, they completed a literal violation of the rule book, essentially, and they, because of their actions, Central Michigan won a game that they really, honestly, should not have won. They literally cost the team out of the victory here. You know, even though they didn't want to, they were trying to, in their view, trying to enforce the rule as best as they could. They did the wrong way, and it cost the team a victory. You know, this is similar a little bit to what we saw with the Hail Mary between Green Bay and Seattle. In a sense, it reminds me of that in a sense. And there was some repercussions because it ended the ref lockout. And so, you know, there has to be some consequences and repercussions of this sort. So I have no problem with the 2-game suspension.
Question number 2: With the upset win, how much momentum can the Chippewas carry from there?
I'm not sure. I think they'll probably most likely, if they win one of these next two games, I'll be stunned. But it could help give them a good motivational boost for what they can do in their with the conference. I think the MAC can be won by practically anybody on any given year. So who's to say it can't be the Chips year this year?
Because remember when they upset Michigan State in 2009? They rode the momentum the rest of the way. They won the MAC championship, and then they won the GMAC Bowl.
There you go. So there's your precedence of history right there. Maybe something similar can happen this year. Who knows?
Yeah, they were rolling. That's the possibility I'm looking at here. Question number 3, are the Michigan Wolverines proving that they're a top 5 seed?
They're doing what they're supposed to do, I'll say that, in terms of them proving that they deserve one to be the top 5 or 4 teams in the nation. That's going to come later down in the road. They're going to have to prove it in their 3 biggest games. They're going to prove it in East Lansing against Ohio State, in Iowa City against the Hawkeyes, and of course at the end of the year in Columbus against the Buckeyes. So it's going to come down to what they do in those 3 games versus what they do the rest of the year. Rest of the year, they should have no problem with, aside from a couple potential, teams that overachieve and whatnot in their game. But with a favorable home schedule, and you only have, 3 big road games to worry about. Granted, they're all on the road, but, they're all isolated in the sense that you can focus solely on them when the time comes. It's going to come down to what you can do in those 3 games to actually prove whether or not you deserve the ranking that you have right now. So as of now, they haven't proved it as of yet because they're facing Little Sister Sport. They're doing what they're supposed to do. And even, the early part of their conference schedule, they'll still have, it'll be seen like a glorified scrimmage of sorts before they face their real tough, their first real stern test in MSU next month.
Speaking of MSU, close question number 4. After the close win over Furman, are the new-look Spartans in for some trouble?
Well, possibly, because like I mentioned, you are facing a Notre Dame team this week, this upcoming week, that's going to be probably still be ticked off for what happened to them against Texas. They're going to use that as their motivational fuel to help them throughout the rest of this year. So look out. And the fact that it's at home, prime time in South Bend, always feel nervous about that. MSU, though, they have a good defense, as they always seem to do. It seems to be a staple under D'Antonio. D'Antonio teams of late must have a good defense. That can help out in certain ways. And it's a very good thing, too, that they have this off week between Furman and Notre Dame to really isolate and look at mistakes they committed and try to prepare themselves better for potential onslaught from Notre Dame in this upcoming week.
Question number 5, is Lions head coach Jim Caldwell's decision-making still going to affect the team's season like it did last year and the year before?
Oh, yes, very, very. Yeah, I'll just stop you right there. Yes, very much it will. If we saw the dumb mistakes that he did yesterday, with the timeouts, it's basically, it's going to be like Auspice 2.0, but possibly even worse since it is the football team involved here. Thankfully, it'll be more mercifully over as compared to being stretched out to a long, long series of seeing dumb mistakes from the guy that's supposed to be in charge of your team on the field. But yeah, it's going to show up in leaps and bounds from Caldwell, from Comatose Caldwell this year.
Question number 6, how does the Lions defense improve when they return home and play the Tennessee Titans?
Well, like I mentioned, you must get better pressure from your defensive line. They did good. They did a very good job in the first half, and the second half almost non-existent. Also, you can't make boneheaded plays the way DeAndre Levy did on a personal foul that gave him a free first down. And the secondary, my goodness, I've constantly stated that this is a weakness that they needed to fix years and years ago, which is why, I granted there's a couple plays in the draft you couldn't have, you want to pass up on, but someone tells me, like, if you had taken, care of this in the early round or so, a year or two before, whatever, you wouldn't be seeing the situation where if you don't get pressure with your D line, your secondary is essentially left out to dry. You easily gashed up the middle, up and down the field all day. So it's going to be very important. It will behoove the defense if the D-line gets their pressure so that the secondary won't get exposed as much.
Question number 7. With less than a month to go in the regular season, do the Tigers make or miss the postseason?
Well, I like I told you, they're not winning the division. I think I'm glad I made this tweet now, so they probably won't backfire on me. But I even sent out a tweet to one of our favorites, Miranda McCoy. This shout out to you, Shay. That I'm essentially conceding the 2016 Central Division to the Cleveland Indians because they've deserved it. They played out of their minds, and we keep screwing up, making bonehead decisions on the field or even on the bench or in the dugout, I should say. So it comes down to what can we even make the wild card. The way I'm looking, I'd say at the very, if it comes to it, I think more than likely we'll probably just make the play-in game. So if you want to count that as a playoff game, sure, go ahead. I probably won't, but after that, it's up in the air into how far I think this team can go.
Question number 8. Could Jordan Zimmerman's career be done?
Career over? No. Season over? Probably. At the very least, as a starting on the starting rotation. If he wants to pitch again, I would recommend just try, after he does the simulated game, if he's still not looking good, just bring him out the bullpen. Save us all the trouble. If he doesn't look good in the simulated throw and or his next start, just bring the dude out the bullpen. But you know what? You may not even get a chance if you don't make the playoffs anyway. So, but that'll be my personal recommendation or choice. Obviously, Dunderhead, dummy from Dartmouth, won't do the same. But it's what I would do. Career over? I would say no. He's still got a couple of years left.
And speaking of whom, question number 9, should Ausmus have used Stephen Moya in at least one of the last few games?
Yes! If you're going to call the dude up, use him! Especially when yes, listen, we know Stephen Moya this year, it's been feast or famine. I get that, but he's more reliable and to help you out than Romine or Collins or even Saltalamacchia lately, Especially if you call the guy up for the expanded rosters and then you're not using him, what the hell is the point of calling him up to begin with?
Question number 10. Should the Tigers also fire their hitting coach, Wally Joyner, considering their offense is still bad?
It's a possibility. It's something to look into because, what was it, yesterday or the other day, it might have been Saturday, they got bases loaded with no outs, and they only get one run out of that. That's a bad indictment on you as a hitting coach. So it's something you really have to take into serious consideration after this season, what to do with your hitting coach, because they've had some good spurts where they went off. Most of that was against bad teams with bad pitching, but for the most part, it's been very frustrating to see this team in some instances waste good quality starts, and also, like we saw on Saturday, waste golden opportunities when it presents itself to them. So I'm leaning towards yes. I am leaning towards yes in that regard.
Me too. I'm definitely leaning towards yes. And for all listeners and fans out there, if you want to answer those questions, just replay the episode and answer them in the comment bank below this episode. That wraps up episode 225 on the Michigan Sports Truth. Ed, thanks so much again for your help. Glad you're back. Glad I'm back. We'll talk again on episode 226 next week.
Maybe. Yep, absolutely. Try to get some for next week, or maybe try some for this week, since we can preview what could happen with more football weekend.
Yeah, episode 226 will feature the preview for more college football and NFL, including the Lions.
Yeah. So can't wait to get back to you on that one, Taylor. Take care and have a good day at work.
Thanks, you too. Thanks. So with that, before we sign off, I want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media. Have their friends share that as well, and follow me on Spreaker as Taylor Phillips online at www.spreaker.com, because I want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth, once again, is in search of local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, please email me at taylorgatorphillips14 at yahoo.com, or privately message me on Facebook or Twitter. For Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. If there's anything you fans want more of or less of on our podcast, please let us know. Follow us on Twitter at DT2Phillips and EdSmith313. TTFN, ta-ta for now.